just to tell you a little bit about Douglas, he is a 5-time South African Toastmaster champion, which accolades he achieved in, I understand, his early 20s. He then went on to come second in the World Toastmaster Champions, which is a bit of a blip on your screen there, Doug, because I'm trying to work out why you never came first. But in any event, you could tell us that story now. Doug has authored 10 Penguin books, but that's actually not all the books he's authored. There are another 3 or 4 that happened before Penguin found him. So Doug can tell us a little bit about that as well. But why you are with us today is to find out how Doug's popularity on YouTube has suddenly gone crazy. And we're going to find out how sudden it was, what it took him to build up that following, and in fact, how you and I can make money on YouTube. So welcome, Douglas.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Paul. And thanks, folks, for joining us. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off immediately by asking you this question, Douglas. And what got you into, I know you do podcasting, I know that you do audio books, I know that you write books, but what got you so interested and what got you hooked on YouTube? How did it come about? Was it by accident or was it a planned strategy?
Yeah, it was a bit of a mix of both there, Paul. So what happened was when I started out, it was not actually possible to monetize a YouTube channel. Today, people are making full-time careers out of it. And there are some people around the world playing video games live online and buying yachts on the proceeds, which I just find annoying. But in fact, when I started off, it was really just an opportunity to market myself as a speaker. And I happened to have some decent footage from a couple of events, and I simply put it up online. The goal at that point in time was just the marketing and the expert positioning. It was starting to create a brand and a profile and so on for myself. Somewhere down the line, one of the videos went viral and caught me by surprise. And that was when I started taking it a bit more seriously, because I realized you can do this. This is not only a career path, but it can be a massive revenue generator. So it started off unintentionally, and then I tried my best to learn a lot in a hurry, and hopefully I've learned a lot since then.
Okay, so you're in fact a South African Speakers Hall of Fame inductee, and you're a certified speaking professional. So a lot of what you do is increasing your popularity as a speaker, giving you a platform, putting you out there, letting people actually see you speaking. So to an extent, that was one of your reasons for going on YouTube, so that people could go onto your channel and see what you look like when you speak and then book you for conferences. So yes. How do the two dovetail for you?
Well, I think we greatly underestimate how important scripting, our use of words, our use of language might be to any medium. And something that sort of pops into my head here, I'm a great fan of Jeremy Clarkson and the Top Gear shows. And you can study him if you are interested in what sets experts apart in different industries. And I often use him as a great example because he's not the most academic person you'll ever meet, but he earns exponentially more than other presenters within the automotive industry. And when you look at that, it's about this combination of character and clever writing. And there was something interesting that gave that away for me. At the end of his Top Gear career, after he was fired and before he was taken on by the Grand Tour, there was a very rare commentary by him on the new show. And all that he said about it was, when you watch the credits at the end, it doesn't say written by. And he said what made Top Gear successful was the fact that it was so tightly scripted. So we think of someone like Clarkson as this kind of off-the-cuff buffoon. It is not even close to true. Everything that he did was highly scripted with close attention to language. And I think that's something that we perhaps underestimate. We think of YouTube as a visual medium, which it is. But for us as speakers, as coaches, as aspiring experts, I think we underestimate the language side of things. And a properly scripted video can be exceptionally powerful.
So very often when you see the kind of off-the-cuff type of humor that might be used by somebody like, for instance, John Cleese.
Yes.
In actual fact, a lot of that is very carefully scripted so that the nuances and that come in at a specific time so that they are very funny. And what he would have done is that he would have tried out different ways of delivering that and different types of timing until he eventually really got it right.
Yes, and it's very much the kind of thing that we learn in PSA or Toastmasters or anything to do with speaking and communicating. My most effective video, the one that's now sitting at about 2.6 million views, is a live presentation for a university. And it starts off with me asking the rhetorical question now to a group of students. I say, who here has a Ferrari? And there's this kind of mumble and murmur and a bit of laughter around the room. And I go straight from that into a story about seeing a Golf and a Ferrari that had come a cropper on the side of the road. So now when you think about that, there must be a reason that video was viewed, clicked on, and shared so many hundreds of thousands of times. And its opening is playful language, humor, and storytelling. And I think that's the heart and soul of all of it. Whenever I talk to groups of speakers, I often say that you have to read the book by Steven Pinker called The Sense of Style. And if you don't get to read the entire book, just read the first 50 pages. That will do the job for you. He goes into some very simple lessons derived from some very complex science. And it's all about how the brain processes info and ideas. And the simple findings are, although we can think in numbers and charts and graphs and abstract representation, it doesn't light us up. So the obvious question is, what does light us up? And the answer, as most speakers and writers know, is storytelling. If you can make things move in the theater of the mind, if you can create imaginative imagery and get people to get out of their own problems for a while and think in terms of picture stories, you will be that much more effective. So I'm quite open and upfront with you, Paul. I'm not an algorithms guy. I'm not a sort of a technical guy. I've had to learn these things the very hard way when it comes to YouTube. But what I love is the art of speaking and communicating. And I think that's what works. That's my sneaking suspicion anyway.
So if you look at this whole thing about, well, you need to post often on YouTube, that's all very well. But the problem is, if you don't have something of value to say, there's no way that you are going to get a following. Now, I've got 166 videos on YouTube, but I don't have nearly the kind of following that you have. So what a lot of people are wanting to know is, what is the secret in terms of getting your content noticed? And I guess that one of them would be that it's not only got to be interesting, but maybe you need to be a little bit controversial. Can you speak to that?
Well, Paul, the real secret is when you stop at any intersection around Johannesburg, you'll see a little poster next to you that says, Dr. Lovejoy's Magic Medicine will cure your diseases, bring out your enemies, and help you to get YouTube followers. So if you go down that route, you've got it made. I'd love to give you a clear and simple answer to this one. The reality is I've been sort of stumbling upon it myself. The first video, the one that went viral, was a live presentation. And as a result of that, I then had to start thinking very consciously about the channel and about what works, what doesn't, and so forth. And I tried then to almost narrow the channel down to the theme of From Amateur to Expert, where we talk about work, wealth, and how to become a thought leader. Yeah. And that seems to have worked quite well in my context, and it's now up to about 96,000 subscribers. Yeah. But what's very interesting and a little frustrating about that is when you look at the views on the videos, you're not getting 90,000 views per day. Even the relatively well-performing daily videos tend to get 1,000 to 2,000 views, which is about 1% of my subscriber base. Yeah. So it is frustrating. I believe in a dualistic approach where I think you should go after that one video that goes viral and put thought into how to do something that is so controversial, hard-hitting, entertaining, well put together, whatever the case might be, that people go, this is awesome, and share it. And of course, trying to work out or deconstruct what that sort of magical formula is our life's task as speakers and as content creators. But at the same time as that, I also believe in the day-to-day production of what we might call our stock fare. So it is well worth thinking, both in terms of the highly entertaining and shareable and just the day-to-day fare of what you do. Now, the upside to that is if you have that one video that suddenly goes ballistic and sets fire to your channel, people can go back and watch all of the hundreds of other videos that came before it. And that can make a huge difference to your revenue and to your total watched hours. Just some of the stats that I picked up for the folks who might not be aware of it. To monetize a channel, you have to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watched hours. Now, I also then went and spent a little bit of time watching people who are really masters at creating revenue on YouTube to a much greater extent than what I am. Yeah. And they would say things like, don't even expect to monetize your channel before the first, say, 35 to 40 unique videos.
Yes.
And the first time I heard that, I thought that was maybe a little depressing. I've revised it upwards now. I would say, don't expect to monetize it before your 50th video. Yeah. And I think that's a realistic metric to aim for. It does take a great deal of original content creation before you actually add up all of those hours and before something takes off.
So when I interviewed Nico Steyn about 6 months ago on this topic, one of the things that he said is that you've got to get some momentum going and you need to keep posting all the time. Yeah. And one of the questions that, in fact, I got a question from Claire Newton, and Claire wanted to know, firstly, how much time do you spend on your YouTube as a percentage of the rest of your time? And do you have backup? In other words, is there somebody helping you? Do you have an assistant doing some of the background admin work? Or is that all managed entirely by you?
I do it all myself, Paul, and I will add to that, it's one of the most frustrating things that I do. It's entirely possible for a single YouTube video to take up most of your day. I'll quickly run you through my sort of production. What I do is I keep notes on my phone. As an idea hits me, I'll just add it to the notes list. And then on any given morning, when the little guys at school and the hardy-dars have settled down and the marching bands and mariachi chorus have gone by outside, I'll go through the list of topics that I've come up with and think to myself, all right, which is the one that sort of captures me? Which one do I think is timiest, or whatever the case might be? And I'll usually then put together a short script. Now, I've tried this 2 ways and it seems to work both ways. And I'm not sure which is the superior one. I've done videos that are perfectly scripted. In other words, I have a script in front of me and I am almost literally reading it line by line and then glancing up at my camera. And then I've also done other ones where I've done a loose script where it's a basic idea of what I want to say, maybe a story or two, and I speak more sort of naturally and spontaneously to the camera. And I've had both of those videos perform well, and I've had both of those types of video flop dreadfully. So dealer's choice on that one. But I think what it comes down to is if you're doing something very intellectual on a very high level, it seems to me to be a good idea to have a basic script to work from, whether or not you choose to read it and deliver it word perfectly. The danger to word perfect is that you lose that connection with the camera. And I think that personality, that charm, that sense of vitality in the presenting is a large part of what actually makes the videos attractive. So what I will then do is I will then set up all of the things around a sort of a mini studio that I have. You are looking at a green screen wall behind me. None of that exists. I can supplement that with Shakira belly dancing or a herd of cows going by, whatever the case might be. And I have a semi-permanent setup, by which I mean I have a tripod on which I place my phone. I film everything on my iPhone. I then have a microphone plugged into my laptop. It captures the sound, the video, the phone captures the video, and I edit them together afterwards. Now, if you haven't started doing it that way, I would advise you away from it because it is a gargantuan amount of work to edit the videos together afterwards. You get the sound clips together, you edit in backgrounds and so forth. If you're starting out and want to simplify your life, don't use a green screen, just use a nice neutral background and try to capture your audio and your video on the same thing. I have semi-permanent lights set up in the room, so it becomes a case of walk in, switch everything on, get going. The actual shooting of a video, say for example, I'm doing a 5-minute video, might take me about 15 minutes worth of delivery with interruptions, stop, start, do it again. And that's the least of the work. Most of the work then is editing and uploading afterwards. So a typical video on my motivational channel might take about half a day to do, and I'm doing all of it.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is quite mind-blowing. So just to go back to that one video, because I think that really interests people tremendously, is that feeling of, so you get going and nothing happens, and you get 14 views and you get 31 views and you get 10 views and you get no views, and then you wow, then you get 99 views and you think,
and then you walk outside and you cry to the moon and you question your entire life and you look for what you did wrong and which nun or puppy you kicked in your past.
Why won't anyone listen to me?
Frustrating. And I'll tell you, Paul, sorry, yeah?
No, carry on.
I started a second YouTube channel, and then I went through that all over again. So as you know, I've got the work and motivation one, which is up to about 96,000 now. And then I published a book in the States on a totally different theme, and I thought I'll start a channel for that one. And for the longest time, that channel was sitting around 300-400 viewers, and I could not get that needle to budge. Yeah. Then again, one of the videos, and this was about 45, maybe 50 unique videos in, suddenly took off. Yeah. And it went up to about 11,000 subscribers. But you know, when I tell the story that quickly, it sounds so easy. Yeah. When you've done 7 months of really trying to get a YouTube channel going and like blowing on the embers and nothing happens, the frustration is unbelievable. So it really does take those 50 videos, and it's that one that just skyrockets.
So it's really a bit of a story there of perseverance. But in your video that got my attention about, you had the 8 things that you've learned about how to monetize your YouTube channel. There was an amazingly interesting thing that came out, was that there is actually no duration that's the right duration. And in fact, your most viewed video is, I think, 45 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you know, how long is too long? I mean, it's kind of like asking the question, how big do you like your lover? Everyone has a different answer. So yes, the longest one, the greatest duration that I have is the 2.6 million views video. And that's a full keynote. It's I think 45 minutes in duration. Then the next most popular one is something like 9 minutes long. So there really is no standardized duration for a successful video. YouTube themselves share a lot of interesting insights with content creators. Once you're monetized, they actually send you little tips and insights and so forth, and you can go into the stats on your own channel and learn a great deal about what's happening in the background. But they often say that 8 minutes is a sort of a golden point, a good marker to aim for. And that was quite surprising to me. I would have thought that 30 seconds to a minute would have been the sweet spot. But we seem to get that wrong. We assume that we live in this culture where it's quick views and off, and it's not always the case. Obviously, it depends on what kind of content you're creating. If you're doing dancing cats, maybe 30 seconds will do it. Yeah. But if you're sharing an idea, like say a Simon Sinek Start with Why, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if it's fascinating, go for an hour. People will watch it.
But then surely the secret would be that if you're going to have a longer video, people will come in and watch for the first minute and a half to see if it grabs them. But if something grabs them, then they tend to stay. So I think that one must come up with something really interesting that makes them want to watch longer, and maybe something else shortly after that kind of grabs them. Would that be
yes? And here's where I come back to the idea that I think we underestimate writing, wit, and how we use language and storytelling in our videos. I think this is much more of a verbal medium than we give it credit for. It is great fun to work on things like your production, your lighting, and little animation sequences and so forth, and it certainly does add something. But when you think about it at the most sort of visceral level, we don't look at a video and go, "Ooh, that looks like it has good lighting," and click on it. That's the furthest thing from our minds. We do not go back to a channel because we remember it looking like a television studio at all. And while I think it is important to work on especially your sound, your lighting, and so forth, it is very much secondary in terms of the sort of philosophy that drives the impactfulness. I think most of the time we go, "Hey, it's that guy. I loved his last video, click on it." Or "She's always funny, click it, let's see what she has to say." And when you start thinking in those kind of more emotional terms, you realize that it is much more of the sort of Jeremy Clarkson effect. It's the personality, the wit, the storytelling. How enjoyable are these videos? Or is it like watching a sort of an academic documentary? And people are not going onto YouTube to watch documentaries. In addition to which, we have Zoom fatigue from a year of lockdowns. So that personality, that fun, the wit, the playfulness, and all of that up front, that makes a huge difference. But with that in place, it's very much like Ogilvy said about advertising. If they like what you're after, they will sit and read pages and pages of it. So if you are doing something that does hook people and you're speaking to the right market, they'll sit and watch an hour of it.
Okay, so now education is a topic that often comes up, and people think, well, they don't want to put stuff out there if they don't have a degree or a PhD or something. Now, you yourself, many people don't know this, but you're not only a Hall of Famer and a CSP, but you've got a degree in philosophy, which I'm sure has helped you a lot in terms of your approach, and it's given you a few step ups. But I think we also know that sometimes people with degrees, and I'm not necessarily talking about philosophy, but they often get pigeonholed into ways of thinking that prevent them from being creative and innovative. So
I think that is 100% true. And I think it's those cross connections that we make when we are more fascinated by the entire world than perhaps a subject matter expert who becomes someone who focuses on the literary works of Derrida. You're not going to talk to a great many people that way. So to what degree are you fascinated by the world around you? Now go out and share it and make it come alive, but turn it into magic. Absolutely, yeah.
So Douglas, we've had a seismic change in a sense, in that a lot of content, or certainly far more content, is being delivered online than is being delivered in person, which means that we can be speaking to people anywhere in the world. Therefore, the attraction of the speaker that has a very, very niche area of subject expertise is incredibly attractive, because if I want someone to come to my conference and speak to my audience, I'd like the expert, and I can get them now because of YouTube, because of Zoom, and because of all the other platforms.
It's an amazingly powerful expert positioning tool. And that was, I mean, as I mentioned, that was how I thought about it in the first place. It was, how do I become known as a speaker? And I remember asking one of my agents when I was starting out, and I simply asked the question, what on earth do you do to become known, to get anywhere in this industry? And her answer at the time was, write a book. And that was very good advice. And I would couple that with and be on YouTube and so forth. And I like the idea of, I always say, sort of picture yourself at the center of a spider diagram. You are the expert, and there are various channels sort of flowing and emanating out from you, whether it's the books, the articles, the YouTube channel, whatever the case might be. All of them share similar formulas, which is make a point and tell a story, be entertaining, take your ideas and make them come alive for people, use theater of the imagination. And it seems to work every bit as well in books as what it does on YouTube, as what it does on a live stage. There's something deeply human about this. And I think that is perhaps the most important lesson for anyone trying to break through in any medium or on any platform. It's the deeply human connection that actually gets it done. You can have gritty, badly produced videos, but if you have someone that people love to be around, that's the sort of thing they're going to love. And I'll give you just an example of this one. I've recently gotten slightly hooked on a guy who does a sort of a semi-comedy / politics show in the States called Steven Crowder. And he has some 5 million views per morning. He's got one of the most watched shows on YouTube. And while it is nicely decked out and it's well lit and the whole trip, and you can see there's a big crew working on it, the guy is chaos incarnate. I mean, he's like this human whirlwind of a personality, but it's irresistible. I mean, it's so interesting to watch. You actually watch it just to see the wheels fall off every single morning. So we get it wrong when we think how smooth it is the kernel, is the important thing. It's not the metric.
So for people that are starting out and want to start developing a YouTube channel, would you say that it's quite a good idea to pick 1 or 2 lanes and get going on that so that you get known as the expert on that particular topic? Or can you actually speak about anything?
Yeah, this is an interesting sort of branding problem that I've had to deal with recently. I've got the motivational and wealth and expert positioning channel, and the other one, which is kind of more political and philosophical based on that book. And I was worried about this idea of sort of straddling 2 worlds. I have almost a weird meeting of these 2 areas, because the wealth books that I write have a little bit of these elements of philosophy in them, and it leads to the more political ideas, and the 2 do interact. But I'm quite tempted to say that it is probably much more powerful to have one clear thing that you are known for, rather than trying to do a little bit of everything. Unless your show is about being a mixed bag, and then it's driven by the one clear personality, whereas the content may change every day. I think, like many things in life, and like becoming a professional speaker, you don't know what you're going to be when you start out. You kind of get a feel for it as you go along. It's very tempting, having done 10, 20 years as a speaker or an author or a YouTube personality, to say, this is the formula. I don't think anyone ever really does it that way. We start off by speaking about something we love. Then we realize we could angle it that way and it would have more commercial possibility. Then we realize actually the humor works in this direction, and we tend to stumble on the thing that we love. And I think if there's any underlying formula for breaking through with that, is it's continue to pay attention and bring your heart and soul to what you do. And then you've simply got to keep on blowing on those embers, because it takes a lot longer than what we expect it to.
Yeah. So something that I think also happens is that if you put a few different things out there, is to see what resonates with your audience, and you'll be surprised that it's not always what you think.
Yes.
So I've been putting videos up, and they were about how to set up your Zoom channels and what have you, and get yourself prepared, and the lighting and the this, that, and the next thing. And they got a few views and what have you. And then during lockdown, in front of the fire, I wrote a song in about 40 minutes, and I put a dare up on Facebook, and I got 12 dares. So the next morning I came downstairs, I did one take, I posted the thing on Facebook, and I got 2,000 views. Now, not one of my videos has ever got 2,000 views, but I write a new song. And then I wrote another one 4 days later, and that got about 700 views. So, I mean,
your market is telling you what it wants, Paul.
All right. So I'm giving up speaking, and I'm going into being a musician again.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried that when I was... yeah. And I mean, you know, a little bit of wax, take the shirt off. This will work. I'm right there with you.
I'll think about that, Douglas. That's got merits. That's got merits.
We'll throw that one out there and just let it just percolate in the background.
Good stuff. So Mike has kindly put in a few questions, and I'd like to just, firstly, he said, thank you, Douglas, some good advice. And he said, I'm thinking about posting content that is more cinematic, that captures nature scenes with music without having any presenters.
Right.
Do you think not having a personable connection with the viewers is not the right approach? Well, that's a great question.
That is a great question. And the answer is no, anything can work. I mean, honestly, cats falling off chairs will get millions of views. What I'd be tempted to do there, and this is one of the very few technical tricks that I've learned, is to get a download, an extension to your Google search by the name of Keywords Everywhere. Now, I'm not particularly technically minded. I went onto YouTube and I watched a couple of videos on how to do this. So you just go onto YouTube and type in Keywords Everywhere, or how to use Keywords Everywhere. The basic idea is you download this thing, it connects to your Google searches, and then what you would do is you would perform a Google search where you would say something like live cinematic videos, or beautiful scenery, movies with beautiful scenery, whatever the case might be.
Yep.
And it will give you the nearest searches to that phrased the way people actually do those searches. So for example, if I was going to do a video on something like how to do 10 push-ups, I would then go, all right, what do people search for? And I would type into Google how to do 10 push-ups. Then it would come up with a list of the way people actually phrase those, the ways that they phrase that question. Like it might be, how do I get to 10 push-ups? How do I achieve 100 push-ups? Whatever the case might be. Once you know what those phrases are, you can then use them as the keyword on your uploaded videos, and that will increase your searchability. It can even affect your content. For example, you might type in something like cinematography or beautiful imagery, and you might see that the most searched thing is drone footage of New Zealand. And then you start thinking, oh, that's what people are looking for. Let's do some of that. Yeah. So those keywords can actually guide and determine your content, which is also quite an interesting realization.
Right. So I came across it was recommended to me that I get TubeBuddy. I don't know if you use that at all, but it's
no, can't say I do. Similar idea though.
Yeah. So what they do is that they give you some analytics on each of your videos, and you're able to see, like, for instance, there are little things like a thumbnail, a proper photograph, a good quality photograph thumbnail is better than just an image of you speaking. So that's one of the things that helps your ratings quite a lot. Another little thing that I found out was that if you simply put a date in of the recording, that helps as well. So there are all kinds of little bits and pieces that help. And apparently, I also found out that if your video is less than 3 minutes, it's going to be penalized because it's not seen as having enough content, which is
interesting.
Which is weird. Okay, so then Mike also asked, do you promote your videos with ad spend?
I don't know. So what I do is when I upload my videos, they are monetized. And as you go through the upload and publication process, they ask you, do you want to monetize this video? And you can choose to say no. I generally go with yes. And after that, YouTube will give you the option of the types of monetization that you want to go for. Yeah. So it might be things like the little banners, it might be the actual ads that play and so forth. I think I pretty much tick everything. So chances are that the answer to that is yes. And Paul, just thinking back to what you mentioned about the thumbnails, it's also worth noting that you can actually reinvigorate older videos simply by changing the thumbnails. Now, there's no reason you can't go back over your past 100 videos and just change the thumbnails and the titles of the videos. Because when you think about it, if a video is not getting a lot of views, it means that people are not clicking on it in the first instance. So you've actually got a different category of problem to the idea that people are not sticking around and watching the entire thing. It means that for some or other reason, they're not clicking in the first instance. And that can be solved and reinvigorated by going back, changing the thumbnails, changing the titles. And you can often find that your older videos will then suddenly pick up in viewership, and it's well worth doing. What I also do is I take older videos and I simply repost them on social media because people will watch them again.
Of course. So how's this for a strategy? Let's say you've got a dozen videos and you decide, okay, so of those dozen videos, I think that 2 of them have really got good content, but no one's really noticed them for some reason. So you change the title, you change the thumbnail, and what was the other thing?
And perhaps then share it to social media again.
And what about keywords?
Yes. So you can change the keywords as well. So that is another thing that you can tinker with. You can simply go into the keywords that you've used, and you can either delete the old ones and add new ones, or again, you can use your keyword search from something like Keywords Everywhere and ask yourself, what do people search for? Because clearly it wasn't that. And having done that, you may already organically get more clicks because YouTube will look at that and say, perhaps this is something now worth featuring. But you can prompt that a little further simply by uploading it to LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and so forth. And it's well worth doing.
Douglas, do you have a number one tip for someone who is really serious about getting a following on YouTube, that has a fairly small following at this stage?
Yeah. I think my number one tip would be go onto YouTube and watch all of the videos on how to start and run a YouTube channel. It's like the folks from the Toastmasters world who want to enter the speech contests. Well, the first thing you do is go and watch some speech contests so that you know what you're dealing with. There is an astonishing amount of useful information out there. Yeah. And the information is put out there by people, unlike myself. I see myself as a speaker and author, and YouTube is almost a secondary thing. Yeah. The videos that have the most views are put out by people who do YouTube full time. So they will go into great detail about what gets the views, how to deal with the more technical side of the analytics and so forth. They'll even give you tips and tricks on when to upload videos. For example, a bad time is a Friday afternoon. You'll hardly get any views. Yeah. And there are certain times of the day and times of the week in which it's more effective to post. So there are millions of little things that you can learn. And that's what I've been trying to do as well. It's this collection of all the little things that you've learned working together, punting the entire thing, and that makes this collective difference.
And it's pretty much true to say that you can never really tell which video is going to take off. You can never really tell
frustratingly no
why it's going to take off. But it's a question of making a bit of a name for yourself. And on that point, what I wanted to ask you about briefly was, how important is branding? So does that make a part of it, or do you find that you first find out what people want to hear from you and then you steer your branding in that direction? Which way around is it?
I think we tinker and learn as we go, but I suspect that the branding is phenomenally important. And a large part of that is what we might call speaking strong. And that is the idea that if you are going to be something, be it all out. I think it's more effective to have YouTube videos that half the world adores and the other half wants to burn you at the stake for than it is to be careful and neutral. Yeah. And I think that's something that particularly applies to my sort of political and philosophical site. That one is called Breaking Woke. What you don't want there is an overly cautious stance that tries to be apologetic and gentle. It simply isn't going to work. What you do, you need to do that full out. And I think there is something to be said for the idea that if you don't have enough dislikes on your YouTube video, you're possibly not pushing the envelope hard enough. Now, of course, there are standards that YouTube publishes with which you have to interact, and you can get yourself booted off for bad behavior. But that is not the same thing as a strong stance or a strong personality. Yeah. So I think the branding thing is incredibly important. And I think, again, that personality of the human being is perhaps the main driving thing there. there. We tend to click on videos because we see something, a thumbnail, and we go, the last one was awesome. What's she saying about this?
Yeah.
And it's that gut feel that really seems to make the world of difference.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. A few sort of thumbs downs is probably a good thing.
Yeah, and please don't take negatives badly. I mean, you know, social media dislikes or bad comments in the comments section, it's a windstorm. It doesn't matter. It's very tempting to think that that is a meaningful metric and that you have to change your entire life, your entire approach. You absolutely do not. In fact, strange but true, the number of comments that you get on a video to a large extent determines whether or not that video goes viral, because that is one of the greater metrics that YouTube actually looks for in its algorithms.
Right.
So based on that, you can do a couple of things. You can be provocative, or you can ask for comments. You simply say things like, do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave me an example. Tell me your story in the comments. And if you remember to do that in your videos, it can make a huge difference to how much the videos, or how well they are ranked by YouTube itself. So this kind of technique built into the video itself can make a huge difference as well. But then again, Paul, I mean, you just never know what's going to work. I found this so frustrating on the newer site. While I was struggling, I came up with a video that was nothing original. I just showed a clip from someone else's TV interview, and I commented about it. And it was almost a kind of a thrown together low workload day where I didn't feel like doing much. And that one got 300,000 views.
Wow.
Now, on the one hand, I'm very grateful. On the other hand, I find that desperately frustrating because I put a lot more intellectual work into the other ones. And I think the other ones are cleverer, but sometimes clever is not what works. Sometimes just showing something interesting and commenting on it is the thing that suddenly causes your channel to take off.
And it's often got something to do with timing, hasn't it? It's what's going on in the world at this particular time. But I find that absolutely fascinating. Now, what we're going to be doing is Douglas and I will be putting this recording on both of our channels. So we'd like to encourage you that if you've enjoyed the multitude of tips that have come out here and found them useful, and you found that they're something that you can use, please share them and let a few other people know, well, I was on this amazing video conference and these were all the tips about making money on YouTube and what have you. And let's see if we can make this video go viral. And then the kind of push to get this interview done was on the basis of one comment that I saw somebody, a guy called Andrew Butters, making on one of your videos. Just tell us quickly a bit about that video.
Yes, that was the one on YouTube, wasn't it?
Exactly.
That was the one on 8 unusual insights into YouTube, which is my own sort of frustrating insights. Like, this is the video that I threw together, and it's the most successful one. And it's the idea that that you need probably 50 original videos, but it's the one that takes off. And it's just the kind of the grit of what I've learned going through this. But yes, someone else's comment brought it up on your side. So it is that commentary that makes it so popular. So here's how you do that. Well, folks, you've just heard that Paul likes to play his guitar with his shirt off. Comment below if you'd like to see him do that in the next video. And that's how you do it.
I'm glad you said just the shirt.
Well, I mean, you know, we can see what comes up in the comments section. We'll play with it. But it is that kind of thing. It's just remembering to talk directly to your audience. And just kind of harkening back to something I mentioned earlier, the book by Steven Pinker, where he talks about styles of communication. He also points out that the most effective mode of communication in writing and speaking from a stage is first person, as though you are having an intimate conversation. So it is, say, for example, I'm speaking about expert positioning. To use that mode of speech, it would be, are you frustrated about your career? Can you imagine yourself in this scenario? And it's me to you as direct conversation. Now, starting off, a lot of people on YouTube try to go a lot more formal than that. And it will almost sound like a classroom lecture, where what it should sound like is you and me having a chat. Are you frustrated about this? Let's chat about that. Yeah. And it's that, as though you're talking to a single person, makes the world of difference.
And once again, it's like it's making that connection. Douglas, it's been an absolute pleasure. How do people get hold of you?
Easiest way is, well, 2 websites. The one is douglaskruger.com. The other one is breakingwoke.com, which is for the new political book that came out in the States. And via email, info@douglaskrugerspeaker.com.
And then your YouTube channel that's had 4.62 million views. Let me put that in the chat box. What is that?
Great stuff. It doesn't have an elegant URL. It's something like Douglas Kruger speaker. But if you simply had to type my
Douglas,
name into
you put Douglas
YouTube
Kruger
search,
into
it brings
YouTube,
it
and
up.
I'll get you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely fantastic, Douglas. Thank you so much. I've learned a whack of stuff that I'm going to be trying out, and for people that are interested in Douglas's books, there's plenty of them in the bookstores. If they don't have them in your bookstore, you can order them, and because they are published by Penguin, and they'll be able
easiest
to
way is Audible these days, I find, Paul. Most people are downloading the audio books faster than they are getting the hard copy, so that seems to be the most popular one. And actually, sorry to interrupt here. I can also track Audible sales in parallel to a good couple of months on YouTube, which is quite interesting to me, and might be interesting to speakers as well. So it's not the same with paperback and ebooks. But for the audiobooks, I find that if I've had a couple of good months on YouTube, I have an equally good couple of months with audiobook sales.
Great. And then your most recent book, which has been a pet project of yours, is, I put it in the chat box earlier, it's Political Correctness Does More Harm Than Good.
That's this little guy over here.
There we go.
I've ever written is like 120,000 words. Political correctness does more harm than good. Yeah. Since then, and on a similar theme, but all finance, locally in South Africa, How to Grow Rich, 50 Ways to Debunk Money Myths. Now, they both do the same thing. They're about debunking fallacies in thinking. That one does it politically, that one does it financially. That's kind of my little thing at the moment.
And there are a whole lot of other books as well, but that will be for another conversation. Douglas, thank you so much. I found it really fascinating, and I wish you well, and I'm looking forward to your next mega hit on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
It's such a great pleasure, Paul. Yeah, and before you disappear there, you and I must chat about the construction of your next video for the launch of your exceptional speaker book, because that's coming up. What did you say? A couple of weeks from now?
It is indeed coming up. In fact, the launch of the exceptional speaker. How to. So
what we should do is we should turn that into a sort of a strategic project of a YouTube video. Put all of this together and do that as a book launch on YouTube.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
Let us chat after off
absolutely.
Stage, yeah.
So there's the URL in case you're interested. What is quite interesting is that we've got an e-commerce website now, so you can order the book. If you're in South Africa, you can get the hardcover, so that's really nice. And you can get the ebook as well, or the Kindle version. So thanks for slipping that in, Douglas. Thanks everyone for joining us. I hope you've had a lot of fun. I certainly have. And I will let you know when the next Monday afternoon interview takes place. Au revoir.